When I was a young and cocky junior in college, a couple of friends of mine and I wrote a very simple computer program to generate free verse poetry. With the input of a list of promising sounding nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, it would generate hundreds of poems on demand that sounded a little bit like William Carlos Williams on acid. It was pretty clunky stuff, really. This was back in the 1980s. But I thought it was the funniest thing ever, kind of a poke in the eye to the full of themselves modern poets. It really was nothing more than a souped-up game of Mad Libs. But there were a few of those poems, if I could dignify them by that term, that came really close to making sense, and that did sound a little bit like the loopy, arcane poetry you heard from poets back then. Of course, that was 40 years ago, and the capability of the software, not to mention the programmers, has improved greatly since then. Now there are neural networks that actually can learn, and can abstract information from their environment and learn much like a child does, trying things out, seeing what works and what doesn't. And just last year, a very far evolved version of our modern poetry generator generated a movie script by looking at dozens of futuristic science fiction movies, abstracting the tropes, and then writing its own. The neural network named itself Benjamin, which is curious enough as it is, and the script it generated is called Sunspring, a surreal 9-minute-long script that appears to be about a love triangle. Best of all, the people who created Benjamin hired some actors to portray the three characters in Sunspring, and the result was a video you can find on YouTube that's a predictable mashup of nonsense and some stuff that comes damn near profound. Oscar Sharp and Ross Goodwin, who programmed Benjamin, entered Sunspring in the Sci-Fi London contest and won. Now that they won, I'm sure, is at least in part due to the fact of the novelty of having a script written entirely by an artificial intelligence. But part of it was that there was a disturbing sort of sense behind the script that you couldn't help but notice. When Benjamin won the contest, his creators arranged Benjamin to be interviewed by the MCs of the award ceremony. When Benjamin was asked about how he felt about his script winning, he said, "I was pretty excited. I think I can see the feathers when they release their hearts. It's like a breakdown of the facts, so they should be competent within the fact that they weren't surprised." Which, like much of Sunspring, almost makes sense. As a fiction writer, I find this fascinating. I've often wondered where creativity comes from, and not only that, but why some books will make a connection with readers and others don't. It strikes me that creativity involves a relationship between the consumer, the producer, and the intermediary of the book or piece of music. Because of this, there's times when the link fails to form, or when it generates something that the producer did not anticipate. A minor example of this occurred with my own novel, Lock and Key. In this book, the perpetually exasperated character of the librarian, who keeps track of all of the timelines of every human being on Earth, was described as having elfin features, by which I meant he was slender and had narrow face and light hair, a bit like Tolkien's elves, but not nearly as badass. But one reader interpreted that to mean that the librarian was a little person, and she insists to this day that that's how she visualizes him. I suppose this is why I cringe a little whenever I hear that one of my favorite books is being made into a movie. The way I imagine it is never going to come out perfectly on the screen, and it will always create a disconnect when I watch the movie. One example of this was Lord of the Rings. I absolutely loved the series, both the books and the movies, and I thought the casting was stupendous. The one exception was Elrond. Hugo Weaving will always to me be Agent Smith from The Matrix, and all through the movie, whenever he appeared, I was expecting him to say, "I will enjoy watching you die, Mr. Frodo." So meaning in books, music, and art is part what the creator put there, and part what we put there by our interaction with it. But what, if anything, does Sunspring mean? I'll let you decide. Here's a short piece of dialogue between two characters who are named H and C. H says, "It may never be forgiven, but that is just too bad. I have to leave, but I'm not free of the world." C responds, "Yes, perhaps I should take it from here." And H says, "You can't afford to take this anywhere. This is not a dream." Which I'm not sure actually means anything, but isn't any weirder than dialogue that I've heard in David Lynch movies. In any case, as Benjamin's creators would undoubtedly agree, AI and neural networks are still in their infancy. And in a few years, Sunspring might seem as outdated as our clumsy poetry generator did from 37 years ago. But it does give us an interesting twist on the Turing test, the old litmus test for figuring out if an AI is actually intelligent. If it can fool a human, Turing said, then by definition it's intelligent. Here, there's the confounding condition of creativity bringing in something from us, our visions, our interpretations, our biases, and our knowledge. So if someone finds a piece of music or literature or art that's been created by a neural network, beautiful, poignant, meaningful, where's the meaning coming from? And how is it any different from what we bring to other creative works? I don't even begin to know how to answer that question, but I'll wait for the first AI novel to come out, which can't be too far in the future, and see what I think then. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Our resources are down there, and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.